Hey guys, My Hero Academia is back guys, and oh my god, honestly, it feels so good. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. It, I'm not gonna lie to you. Just watching this episode, which was clearly just kind of like fillerish kind of thing. Even watching this episode, felt just felt so good in order to return to this series, honestly. But okay, so starting off, as per usual, the first episode of the season is always the catch-up episode before we get into the actual material from the manga. However, straying away from the norm, it's not necessarily a recap, but a full-on like filler of what UA is doing, like pretty much following the events with Endeavor. In this case, it's kind of like a mock villain battle slash mock rescue, and 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 I do have to say, this is well, I do have to say, even though I did enjoy it, and that just watching this episode alone, it did give me a lot of vibes of just why I love My Hero Academia. I do also have to say that this is probably one of the weakest of these kind of episodes that the My Hero Academia has done. But at the same time, it's one of those things where even though I think it's the weakest, it's not entirely the episode's fault either, because the previous seasons, the thing is, with the previous seasons, there's an argument to be made that there's enough of a stopgap between moments that warrant the recap. But in the case of season five, what Bones has essentially done is basically spliced an episode like this in the middle of a moment that had such an enormous amount of hype behind it, and it especially feels jarring for people like me who've read the manga and know what followed after Endeavor defeats High End. Like, it actually pretty much even kind of teases us in the after credit scene. So, but like, it's so yeah, just kind of coming off that, just kind of having this to come off in after that high of season four. It's kind of a little bit, it doesn't work as well as the other episodes. Let's put it that way. Which, on that note, I will say, I think one thing in particular you should definitely expect from me when it comes to reviewing these episodes is that I'm gonna be slipping a couple. You're gonna hear a couple phrases. You're gonna hear me slip in a couple phrases in my reviews with this season, and the first arc especially, which is like the two phrases you're gonna hear me say a lot during this season. I'm not gonna lie, are hindsight is 2020 or in retrospect. There's more than likely going to be a lot of that for me, because the thing is, there's a lot of stuff going on in the manga right now that's already making me look back on what we're headed into, and specifically certain moments and characters and whatnot that pretty much give me a very strong feeling of catharsis, you could call it. Like, it's kind of one of those moments where I'm like, okay, there's gonna be a lot like going forward where it's like, okay, how did I not see that happening, or why did I not think of like this, why did I not pay more attention to this kind of thing. Like, yeah, there's pretty much a lot of there's weirdly actually a lot of moments in this first arc that for as much as I overlooked a lot because I was kind of in the general public of thinking that the arc we're headed into is kind of just it's a nice stopgap. But the looking back on this arc we're headed into now, there's a lot that makes me say, okay, okay, so this is what you're doing, Horikoshi. Okay, I get it. But so yeah, it's gonna be a lot of stuff like that, honestly, in this particular arc we're headed into. Um, and if I were to describe the biggest feeling I got watching this episode, it was just a sense of euphoric happiness or euphoric bliss. I don't know, because again, this is one of those episodes where it's just so good to see Class 1A again, but knowing what I know from reading the manga, just it's also kind of sad just knowing that all of this, like going to class, learning to be heroes, it isn't meant to last. It's all going to come to an end eventually, and that very soon the hammer is going to drop on everything, and that everything we know, love is going. we know and love about the series up to this point, it's all going to come to an end. It's again, it's going back to the catharsis bit. It's kind of rather cathartic knowing everything that I do know now. But even more than that, even though it's only been but even more than that, even though it's also one of those things where even though it's only been a year between season 4 and 5, because of like recent events in the world, uh, it these it's one of those things where recent events have kind of made time has kind of moved a little bit slower for me. So it feels like years since we've gotten anything from the My Hero Academia anime, and just getting to revisit this world and these characters, it puts a gigantic smile on my face. Like, I don't know what it is, but even before I watched this episode, as I was just sitting down here in this chair to watch this episode, there was just genuine, and before I even pushed the play button, there's this genuine feeling of joy from the idea of getting to see Deku, Todoroki, Bakugo, Ida, Mina, or just everyone again. Like just seeing all these characters again, and I feel this episode really kind of tapped into what it is that made us love these characters to begin with, and this world, and just this whole premise. Like it's such a it might not be like it might not be the most deep or thought-provoking premise at times, but it's the most pure, I think. That's the best way I can describe it. This concept of My Hero Academia is just the most pure. Is just the most pure of shonen concepts, honestly. Um, and and while at the same time, it's this episode also kind of showed us just how much they've improved. Not only how much they've improved, but tonally to a certain degree. This actually feels like an episode where from season 1 or 2, just from how it revisited a lot of the character dynamics. Hell, even the opening gave off this vibe both in visuals and song choice. Like it just again, it's just that pure wholesome feeling of My Hero Academia to me. um, I'd say the only real complaint I have with this episode is it's the first time where the character like reintroduction like the character reintroduction cards did feel a, a bit of a tad distracting and even a little sloppily handled. Like again, it's one of those things where it's it's not bad, but it isn't as integrated as neatly integrated as it was in previous like filler recap episodes kind of thing. Now, obviously, the thing to talk about is the post credit scene, and honestly, I want to save the bulk of what I have to say for next week, but I guess what I can say is, in the words of Anakin Skywalker, this is where the fun begins, and I mean it, cause I mean, and I mean it, cause obviously as it was advertised in the trailer, we have this co-op combat training with Class 1B coming up, which it might seem a little bit of a downgrade to some, but let's just say that Dabi's appearance here is only the beginning of shit hitting the fan, like so to speak, because so much crazy shit spins off just from this one confrontation that we're going to get next episode. And yeah, that line from Dabi about meeting Endeavor for the first time, well, fellow manga readers, we pretty much know all that's bullshit now, don't we? Like, Dabi, seriously, stop bullshitting, man. We know. Uh, and also, one final quick note about the mock training rescue. Class 1A was what the Class 1A was doing in this episode. Like, first off, it was actually pure genius using Mirio as the rescuee, since it's kind of a clever way of incorporating the idea that he doesn't have a quirk anymore, while just giving us like classic Mirio moments. Like the dude is just random as fuck, and I love it. And yeah, but on that note, yeah, I'm sorry, but whose bright idea was it for Hato and Amajiki to play villains? I mean, I get it. They're class 1A superior seniors and all that jazz, and they are the most recognizable upperclassmen we've seen, but I'm sorry, no one can take these two seriously as villains. Hato is too cutesy for her own good, so she's immediately got that working against her in terms of playing a villain. And Amajiki is, well, he's Amajiki, and actually, and I guess to Hato's credit, she does compensate the cuteness factor by actually having a real destructive power that can make her a villain. But yeah, I'm sorry, you will never get me to believe Amajiki is a villain. That is just an impossibility. Although I do like how it did show probably one of the more subtle bits of character development for Bakugo, which is that when he charged Amajiki, we saw him go full power, but when he actually went in for the attack, he actually pulled back. He actually pulled back and didn't go full force. So I liked it in that respect. And no, Bakugo, Amajiki did not hold back. He literally is that much of a meek little bastard. Like he doesn't like fighting, dude. Trust me. Like that it isn't you, dude. It's nothing to do with you. Amajiki is just literally that much of a meek bastard. I'm just saying. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I've got for this one. Just tell me in the comment section what you thought of this episode. Again, it's just so good in order to see My Hero Academia return in the anime. But yeah, but that's all I got, guys. Enjoy the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, guys.